And my inner motivation has always been to understand the power that music has on our brain, but also show the value music has on branding. So now I get the chance to ask you, why did you want to work in the music industry? And what has always been your inner motivation to never stop reaching this goal?
I think, first of all, we're very fortunate to be able to work with what we love. And it's a little bit like your story. I had no musical schooling at all. I was a very happy, enthusiast consumer and prosumer. Just really, really always music has been one of my, key drivers in life. And given a couple of moves in my life, I had the privilege to actually dare to make a move and work with my passion. And that was almost 12 years ago now. Sounds like, way, way back. So I consider myself somewhat of a senior citizen in music tech. But the short story is it was a passion move. I moved from a previous career in completely different things. But it wasn't only an emotional decision. It was a time where I was hanging out with a lot of friends who were in the music industry, both on the creative side and on the business side. And I realized that the whole market was digitizing at the same time right in front of us, both in terms of production, distribution, and consumption. So not only was it, a step for me personally to kind of go after my passion and start a company within this space, there was also something massive in movement. And fast forward 12 years, the whole market has changed right in front of us, both in terms of production, distribution, and consumption. So I was right, but I've done a lot of failures on the way.
And something happened also in Ibiza, right? You want to be able to work at the same time as you have fun, because I always tell people I don't really work. I wake up every day and I live, and what my work is my passion and the drive of it. So I think there we are very similar when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. I mean, we had the opportunity to go after that. And yes, there was an instance when I was hanging out on Ibiza, which we did every summer with good friends. And I just realized that some of my best friends actually were there making money, and I was there spending money. And then I was having obviously very fun when I was there every summer. And then when I went home again, I had a boring life, in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to sound like an idiot here. I had a good job and a great family and good, but in terms of kind of passionately, I was not into what I was working with. And I just realized the fact that fun, boring, money in, money out. That's a pretty interesting metric or matrix to look at from a life perspective. And I decided to kind of try to move up in the fun, making money segment of that. And obviously, I couldn't enter into the creative side of the music industry, but I could enter into the business side of the music industry and into the tech side. And that's what I did with my first startup in the music space. And I've actually had 4 startups in the music tech space since then.
Yeah, and let's discuss about that. So you've been in the world of entrepreneurship and in the music tech scene for a while now. You co-founded Beats Music and Pacemaker, and you pioneered licensing deals and innovated the Nordic tech. So walk us through your journey, mostly sharing your success stories and failures, as you mentioned, and then most importantly, the learnings.
hmm Well, I mean, it's a long story, right? But I will try to keep it short and dry, Swedish style. Um, just summarizing everything with, I'm actually doing the same thing today as I set out to do 12 years ago, and that was based on the notion that the whole music industry was digitizing in front of us, obviously, and leading to the prerequisite that all the beautiful art, music in the world would be available at our fingertips anywhere, anytime, any place. That was, an incredible notion, because previously you were kind of limited to buying CDs, which was great, or vinyl, or you were buying access to very limited catalog through an analog distribution system, right? But even 10 years ago or 12 years ago, digitization was coming. It was coming through file sharing. It was coming through, the Napsters or the LimeWires or the Pirate Bays of the world, and some limited kind of streaming solutions. Hence, that provided for me a massive opportunity, because the most interesting problem to solve or job to be done in that context is obviously figuring out what music, to whom, when, and where. So the company or entity that would solve for that problem would have a very interesting future. So it was all about kind of the filtering function, or the selection support in that market reality of all the music available anywhere, anytime, any place, that I set out to solve. And it was a bit early, maybe more than a bit early, 12 years ago, but the idea was still to go after a source of music intelligence. And that first startup, Pacemaker, we went out to connect with the global DJ community, meaning that with the logic that all DJs of the world obviously work with selecting music in real time and contextualizing music for this specific bar or this party, or a Tuesday versus a Friday. And if we could tap into their collective knowledge and extract kind of their intelligence and emotional kind of decision making around what music goes with what music and what song comes next in what context, then we could actually turn that around and create a music recommendation engine. So Tony and Pacemaker was all about finding a way to incept and connect with the global DJ community, and kind of extract their collective intelligence. We did that by building hardware, and that was basically the only solution at that time, because this was even before App Store. So we ended up having to distribute this Trojan horse, if you may, through a hardware solution. And we built this very beautiful company with a hardware component called the Pacemaker, the world's first pocket-sized DJ system, which was kind of positioned around democratizing DJing. It was a prosumer product to go broader into the music tastemaker market and kind of connect with that market. And then we built software for that, the embedded software, the software client to that, and an online platform where DJs could upload and share their creative produce, meaning the mixes. And we would extract the data in that whole kind of interchange and then turn that into an amazing music discovery place. So very ambitious, and I would say quite on. I mean, it was quite correct in the assumption that that was what the music industry would be about, curation. But we ended up, raising $20 million. A lot of money at that time in Musictech and in little Sweden, and we ended up spending almost all of it to iterate the hardware business, because it's really hard to build hardware. And so we ended up building a very, very, a unique hardware device and a brand, launching in 20 markets, but we weren't able to take it to the next step. So we kind of folded and gave up 4.5 years into the Pacemaker effort.
And after that, how did you end up with music?
So what happened then was that I still, during that period, we'd been, the Pacemaker device had been in kind of the mid, the centerfold of Wired magazine. And it was all over the place as this intelligent kind of forward-leaning music platform that could compete with Apple and so forth. So our investors were obviously all fired up about the prospects of our innovation. But we had spent so much money and effort and working day and night in kind of producing this hardware platform to distribute that we were running out of steam, basically. And we weren't, we didn't have enough power to reiterate the hardware and take it further. So we kind of concluded the Pacemaker ambition. And at that point, I acquired the online platform from Pacemaker, and we sold the hardware platform to our Korean manufacturing partner. And then I injected some of my own money into that and created an online platform called Let's Mix, which was the first human-driven music discovery platform, meaning that all the DJs there were filtered and uploaded in a very interesting way. So you can go and start following DJs, which meant that you were actually connecting to human curation in real time. And it became a very, very strong platform for DJs to promote themselves. It was like a YouTube for DJs. And we did very unique licensing for that platform. And then for consumers, it started exploding because people just love the fact to follow a human instead, a human tastemaker, rather than trying to find music yourself. And it was a very nice kind of interchange between tastemakers and taste takers. And so Let's Mix was kind of the world's first human or DJ driven music platform. And we used initial parts of our AI and kind of the intelligence that we extracted to create these recommendations for the DJs and mixes for the listeners. And it took off. But during the Pacemaker hardware kind of times where we were all over the world, promoting this bigger vision, Jimmy Iovine and Dre were starting Beats Music, or sorry, they were starting Beats by Dre, the headphone company. And they were kind of betting on hardware as well initially to kind of break into the music industry and kind of connect to the digitization by headphones in their instance. And they tried to buy the Pacemaker from us because they thought it was a perfect component in kind of the Beats portfolio. We weren't successful, or I wasn't successful in brokering that deal. They didn't want to pay that much, and our investors thought we were going to be the new Apple, so that didn't work out really well. And they didn't really understand the power of these people as well, how kind of important they were for music in general. Long story short, when I had Let's Mix, I was able to re-engage with Jimmy and Dre and Luke and the team over there. And this was right in line with what they saw as kind of the competing thesis to Spotify, who was really just focusing on building a robot at that time and kind of unlocking artificial intelligence and applying machine learning in order to create, like a recommendation engine. They were more focused on looking to build a human-driven music service, or what Jimmy referred to as the New York Times for music. So an editorially driven music product. And that was Let's Mix was a perfect starting point for them. So they actually acquired Let's Mix for me, and I transferred my team into becoming the initial Beats Music team, and we incorporated in Sweden on stealth mode to kind of build out the competitor to Spotify, global competitor to Spotify. And that obviously was the next kind of challenge, very big challenge, and that's a whole book in itself, that story. But I just conclude by saying that at the end of the day, that worked out really well. But I checked out before we sold the company to Apple because I was completely exhausted. It was the absolute craziest ride, and I've been in a couple of crazy rides. But it became a really nice product. It was a really nice effort, and Apple Music is now obviously the main competitor to Spotify worldwide, and it's been interesting and stimulating to be in the middle of all of that.
Is there any regrets that you wish that you did differently, or something that now when you are more educated in the business and know more that you wish that you could have done differently back then?
Yes, I mean, lots of things, obviously. I mean, I can just try to generalize and say that people have a tendency to underestimate the complexity of music streaming. And there's also a lot of opportunists and people that think that, but how hard can it be, But it's extremely hard. I mean, it's super complex. Not just the technology as such, but the whole fulfillment of a music service. And the consumer expectation is obviously enormous now. I mean, we're so spoiled as consumers right now. So it's very challenging place to be, because you could often hear, I mean, just give me Spotify and we'll put a sticker on it. But you need to find build the infrastructure, you need to source the content, you need to build the team, you need to find your differentiation, you need to excel in like basic product metrics, you need to commercialize it, and you need to package it, and you need to innovate to lead. And that's not trivial. And I think what I'm doing right now, which is my fourth startup, Soundtrack Your Brand, or Soundtrack as we refer to it. I'm doing it again, but I'm doing it now in the B2B space. So basically reinventing background music for the streaming era. And as you said previously, that was when I moved back home and kind of needed a job and took, the next step. I decided to start the B2B streaming service of the world. And I did that together with Spotify. And here we are 7 years later, rolling out globally.